The following announcement has been paid for by Perched on the Top Rope.
Welcome, everyone, to Perched on the Top Rope. It's me, it's the Long Island Ice Lee. And as you heard from our opener today, you're about to get a history lesson in the Dudley family. Chubby, how you doing today?
Doing great, man. Doing great.
Great. Well, before you were Chubby Dudley in ECW, you were actually Easy Rider, part of the Hell Riders. How did you break into the business? What was it like getting into Eastern Championship Wrestling, and how did it all happen?
So I got into business. I actually started in September of 1990 is when I started wrestling school at the old Tri-State Wrestling Alliance wrestling school, which was the precursor to Eastern Championship Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So I had been a huge wrestling fan all through the 80s, and I actually I wanted to be a quote-unquote rock star or guitarist, a hair band. That was my dream, but you never saw fat rock stars. So my backup was to become a professional wrestler. So around 1990, I was really, I realized that, the music thing wasn't going to happen at that point. And I started looking into wrestling schools, came across the Monster Factory, and I was definitely leaning towards that way. And then I found out about Joel Goodhart and the TWA and the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance. And it was just a much better fit for me. And I just had a much better feeling from Joel and the guys there at my tryout. And I started. And then I was set to debut in February of 92. And Joel ended up closing shop the month before. It was just like a spur of the moment thing. Like, he didn't tell anybody. He didn't tell none of the boys. He didn't tell his booker. He didn't tell his partners or nothing. He just went on his radio show and just announced he was done, closed up shop, and he went into hiding for years. Like, nobody really heard or talked to him. Actually, I did. And me and a few other people were able to track him down. But one of the main backers, I should say two of the main backers for the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance, one was Todd Gordon, and the other one was Bob and Lex Ortiz. Bob was the ring announcer for ECW for years. And they called an emergency meeting, to all the boys, meet us at the Springfield skating rink where Bob Ortiz manages the rink. And we went there, and they announced to us, that Joel's gone. He's in hiding. He won't talk to nobody. And we are going to keep going, but it's now going to be ECW, Eastern Championship Wrestling. Tri-State Wrestling Alliance is dead. Whole new start, new beginning, and that's what happened.
Oh, wow. That's more than just a little history to your career. That's also a history to ECW itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you think about the term ECW original, a lot of people apply it to Extreme Championship Wrestling wrestlers. You're sitting here telling me that you were there before it was even Eastern Championship Wrestling. So in your mind, what qualifies to be an ECW original?
You know what? Myself being there from day one from Eastern Championship Wrestling, that's, of course, an ECW original. But I think, too, the guys that were there from the true beginning of Extreme Championship Wrestling, 94, 95, 96, I think that was the true base and core and true Extreme family of originals that truly built that company to have that worldwide name, even at that point in time. So, anybody, I think, from 94, 95, 96, without a doubt, are true originals. And even probably maybe even, you can consider some that were on that first pay-per-view after I left. After that, I guess there's a lot of people still after that call themselves ECW original. I don't consider them.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing too, is because there's a lot of there was a lot of WWF guys and WCW guys that came over to Eastern Championship Wrestling. But then as it became Extreme Championship Wrestling, you saw a lot of those WWF guys kind of, be like, whoa, this is too hardcore. This isn't what I was in the business for. You saw guys like Mr. Curtis Hughes, Hawk, Don Morocco, Jimmy Snooperfly Snuka. You saw a lot of like the legends that helped actually build Eastern Championship Wrestling, and then you see the guys of, you know, slowly be implemented, like Paul Lee, Tommy Dreamer, Sandman, Sabu, and all those guys. So having been part of Eastern Championship Wrestling and having been part of Extreme Championship Wrestling, was there a notable difference between the two, as in how everything worked and the workers worked and whatnot?
Absolutely. You know, in Eastern Championship Wrestling, it was Todd stepped in where Joel Goodhart left off. Like the original Tri-State Wrestling Alliance was, you know, Joel Goodhart doing the booking, and Larry Winters, who was one of my teachers at the wrestling school, and those guys did an amazing job. In my eyes, TWA was the true precursor to Extreme Championship Wrestling. Like when Todd came in and took over that role of Joel Goodhart, Todd didn't really know the business, and he tried going into a booking role, and like those shows, I mean, I'm grateful that I was able to be part of it, because it gave me my true start in the business, and Todd gave me a chance. Like he didn't have to. I never got my actual debut. I mean, I had to do a tryout match for him. Me and my partner, we were in the Hell Riders, and our tryout match was that he was on the board of a local charity, and I forget what the charity was. It might have been for cystic fibrosis or something like that. But he was a major contributor and a major person for that organization. And he would do a free show at their summer camp every summer. And that's where I had my tryout. It was me and my partner against Steve Richards, and I think it was the Delaware Dynamo. It was a guy from the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance too. And from there is where, you know, Todd gave us our chance and our start and started booking us on the shows. So I'm forever grateful to Todd and Eastern Championship Wrestling. The product itself, I was not a fan of. I was not happy with it. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't think it was any good. I really didn't. I was very disappointed in the product and the direction that they choose to go. They were trying to distance themselves from, I don't want to say the hardcore, but Tri-State Wrestling Alliance. And TWA was built on hardcore. And it was truly extreme. And like the fans of ECW would have, you know, that didn't know TWA would have ate that stuff up. I mean, it was that's where I became a huge fan of Cactus Jack. That's where he really, you know, broke big, was in TWA and his feud with Eddie Gilbert. And then fast forward, you know, ECW gets TV, and Todd hires Eddie Booker, and that was a huge Eddie Gilbert mark for going back to the 80s and Hot Stuff International and all that stuff. So I was ecstatic, because here we are, because I knew what Eddie's done in the business. I knew his work, and I knew his booking. So I was like, this is going to be huge for us. And it was the exact opposite. You know, because they were using guys like Snuka, Morocco, and guys who I felt were not going to be good for the product that I was used to. You know, you wouldn't expect to see a Snuka or Morocco doing a hardcore match and stuff like that. And I knew that was the direction that the company had to get back to regain our fans and everything. And just, I mean, the crowds weren't there. You know, we were doing shows, and it was, you know, a couple hundred people maybe if you were lucky. And the fans just weren't. There was the true hardcore Philly fans that were faithful to the product, but not like what became with Extreme. It was night and day. So, I was, and the way it was run was, I mean, it was run like an indie company. It was run like a local indie show, indie company. It was a bunch of friends, you know, and all the boys were all friends. A lot of local Philly guys that were, you know, the main core of the company of the early Eastern Championship Wrestling. But when I went back as a Dudley and was in that locker room with Extreme Championship Wrestling, it was totally different. It was a very different product. And even going back to Eastern Championship Wrestling with Eddie Gilbert and the TV tapings we did and all, I mean, it's still it was run a little different, but not much different than when Todd was running it.
All right. Wow. That's kind of shocking about Eddie, and especially being a huge fan of his and kind of getting let down. But as the Easy Riders, you did actually get to wrestle a couple of legends in a tag match. You wrestled Jimmy Snuka and Don Morocco. What was it like to step in the ring with them?
It was fun, intimidating. It was an honor. I mean, 7-8 years prior, whatever it was, maybe even 10 years prior, they had their iconic feud, and Jimmy jumping off the top of the cage on the Morocco, and here they are now as tag team partners. So that was kind of really, I thought that was a cool angle. But when we got to work those guys, the funny thing is, me and my partner, we were super green to the business. I mean, it was just maybe a year we were in the business, so we were so green. And we get there, and I see on the booking sheet hanging on the wall who we're working, and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. And so we went over to Jimmy and Don. We're like, hey guys, we introduced ourselves, and what do you want to do tonight? And they were like, oh, don't worry about it, we'll talk later on, we got plenty of time. We're like, all right. So we go back a little while later, and same thing, they blow us off, don't worry about it. We're literally behind the curtain getting ready to go out. We're like, what are we doing? Like, what's going on? They're like, don't worry about nothing. And I don't even remember who the ref was. The ref just said to us as he was walking out, he's like, don't fight back. We're like, okay. And so we get out there, and I think as we were out there, the ref said jump them. And I think we went to go jump them, or I forget how it went, but I remember they right away took over on it, and Snuka, I paired up with Snuka, and Snuka grabbed me by the head, and he's like, you dumb motherfucker. And I was like, I'm dead. He's going to kill me. I'm dead. He's going to kill me in the ring. I was like, what is going on? And they squashed us out, and it was what it was, but it was an honor,
Yeah. Speaking of Snuka, did you watch his voice episode of The Dark Side of the Ring, and what were your thoughts?
Yes, I did. It's such a crazy and sad thing, because here this poor girl lost her life, and nobody to this day truly knows exactly what happened except for her and Jimmy. And they're both no longer with us. And, it's just sad. It's really a sad situation. It's there was somewhat a little bit of justice, before Jimmy passed, where they were bringing the whole thing back up again. But who knows what really happened? Do I think he did something? I mean, possible. I don't know. You just don't know. Who am I to judge, too? But one of the things that was really kind of weird, and it wasn't even about like the whole case, was somebody said, it might have been Tonga Kid, said how in WWF locker room, Jimmy, he would come there and say his hellos and just go sit in the corner and keep to himself. And that's exactly the way he was in ECW in the early days. He would come there, be very polite, and talk to you, introduce himself, but then he would just sit in the corner and keep to himself and wait for his match. And he was very, very quiet, but he was very polite and very nice to everybody. He treated everybody very nice, and if you wanted to talk to him, he would take the time to talk with you. But all those Dark Side of the Rings, I think, are just amazing. I've watched them all, and it's a crazy business. And it seems the crazy people find wrestlers. And by the way, cheers to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, here at Perched on the Top Rope, if I'm doing an interview with you and you openly show me a beer, I can't let you drink alone. I don't, whether you drink or not, that's totally up to you. But Bay, cheers.
To you, Lee.
It makes total sense because I'm literally sitting at my Hasbro bar. So how can you sit at a bar and not have a beer, right?
Absolutely.
So now this is the cool part. There were a lot of Dudley family members part of ECW, and some were there before you. I'm just going to run down the list real quick. We had yourself as Chubby Dudley. We had Little Snot Dudley, Dances with Dudley, Big Dick Dudley, Dudley, Sign Guy Dudley, LSD, Little Spike Dudley. Of course, we had Bubba and Devon Dudley, but we also had honorary members such as, who I kind of would think would actually really fit in, the Bushwhackers were made honorary members one night. Do you know the exact order of each family member and how they came in? And
Okay, so the original three was Little Snot, Dudley, Big Dick Dudley. Little Snot didn't last too long. He was in a real bad car accident or something like that. I think he might have did maybe not even a month of shows, and then he was out. And at that point, I never even met Little Snot. At that point, when he was out, is when Richards came to me. And he called me up and he said, hey, he said, you know, we got this new gimmick, the Dudleys, and I think you would be a perfect fit for it. You look like a Dudley. Why don't you come meet us at the hotel after the show this weekend, and let me reintroduce you to Paul and see what he says. Absolutely. Because I had been thinking the same thing. Like, when they debuted, I was like, holy shit, like, I'd be perfect for this. Like, I look exactly like, you know, Big Dick and Dudley. So went to meet him at the Philadelphia Marriott, and I'm in the lobby, and I'm talking with Richards, and Paul comes walking by, and before Richards can even says anything, Paul just looks at me and goes, oh, my God, another fucking Dudley. And Richards is like, this is the guy I was telling you about. So Paul comes over, and we introduce each other, and Paul says, do you have a tie-dye? And I said, no. He said, go buy a tie-dye. I said, okay. He goes, what do you want to be called? I said, I want to be Studley Dudley. He's like, get the fuck out of here. He's like, Chubby Dudley. I'm like, what? He's like, you're going to be Chubby Dudley. He's like, come next week, get a tie-dye, and bring food. Okay. I went next week. First night, I was, you know, doing my outside the ring gimmick, manager gimmick. It was me and Dances with Dudley. We debuted on the same night, and it was, I'm pretty sure it was Dances with Dudley and Dudley against the Steiners. Yeah. Wow. I was like, and it's funny because I was a huge Steiner mark in the late 80s, early 90s. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, all I could think of myself is, do I have to take a Frankensteiner? And that's all I was. Do I have to take a Frankensteiner? And thankfully, I didn't. So, but yeah, that was our first night.
Was Scott still using the Orange Crush? It was the suplex, and he flipped you into a sitting tombstone. Was he still using that at that time?
I don't remember.
I just remember that was. I remember that was a crazy move, and you know, and then they, you know, after that they went off to WCW.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, they were not in ECW long. Once I was there, they were only there for a quick hit, and did they go over to Vince after that? I think for a little bit. I don't remember.
They were part of. I remember them being part of. I remember they went WCW early 90s.
Right.
And then I want to say it was like 93, 94, 92, 93, 94. They were in WWE or WWF. And then I'm guessing after that, maybe it was ECW. Because I didn't know they were even in ECW.
Yeah.
And then
it was quick.
I think by 96, they were in WCW again.
Yeah. So then after me and Dances started, then came, I think it was Bubba.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sign Guy. And then a few months, like Bubba and Sign Guy came really quick after me and Dances. And then it was a few months later, Devon started. And then a few months after Devon, might have even been about 6 months, Spike came. And then I left about a month after Spike came.
All right. Well, that is ladies and gentlemen, you just got the family history of the Dudleys broken down, so you better enjoy that because you probably just heard some names you didn't even realize that were Dudleys. And especially the Bookwhackers being an honorary member, I think that's kind of cool, and they seem like they would fit in. I remember looking up photos of you, and you were 100% right because you looked spot on to Dick Dudley and Sign Guy and everything.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to hear that Paul Lee right away recognized you and said you're a Dudley. While you were in the family, was there any like rifts amongst each other, or did they do any family battle royals in the ring or anything like that?
No, we all. I mean, we were pretty all tight in the locker room. We would all congregate together. We would all sit together for the most part. Like when we first got there, we would all sit together in the locker room and hang together. And then after our match, we would kind of like split up because there was always a monitor set up in the locker room for you to watch what was going on. So then we would be like split up and, watching the monitor. But, before our matches, we were always together and we were close and tight, all of us. I mean, there was, it turned out like I played guitar and me and Bubba were talking one night and Bubba played drums. And we were both like started naming bands from the 80s, and we were both huge fans of hair bands, and we were going back and forth. And then he was like, we should do a band. He's like, and then we can get Sign Guy to play bass because Lou plays guitar too. He's like, maybe we can get Sign Guy to play bass, or you play bass and flip flop. He's like, and we'll get Raven to sing. And I mean, that was it wasn't a serious conversation, but it was a conversation that had happened a little bit, but just never nothing that came of it.
That would actually have been pretty cool if all of a sudden you had a Dudley family band.
Yeah.
That would have been cool. Yeah, that's something I never knew, even about Bubba, that he plays drums, or even you yourself, playing, being, artists and everything. Speaking of the Dudleys, there's never been a family reunion.
It's unbelievable, man. I can't believe.
Has it ever been talked about amongst each other, running into each other at Comic Cons or at like a private autograph signing or anything like that?
You know what? So I've done a lot of conventions over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I've never run into really anybody on a convention I was on, but it's been asked of me quite a few times. But last summer, I went to the Wizard World Comic Con in Philly, and Devon was there.
Mm-hmm.
Sit with Devon for like an hour. We exchanged numbers, and we had a real good heart-to-heart talk about. I really hadn't talked to him probably since ECW days, so 20-something years. I ran into him and Bubba maybe right when they very first started with Vince. I met up with them at the one of the Philadelphia hotels after the show. I met up with them, drank a couple beers, and bullshitted.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't really talked to them, since ECW days. So we had a real good talk, and he told me, and he mentioned to me, and actually ended up doing an interview on my podcast, that he's mentioned to Vince quite a few times about doing a Dudley reunion. And he said Vince was very into the idea and would like to do something with it. But it's a thing with, and a lot of people have heard this too about Vince. When it comes to Vince, it's got to be an idea that comes from Vince, or he doesn't really want to do it.
Yeah.
So it's got to be something done right. And at this point, with Devon retired and working behind the scenes, and Bubba's not there no longer, there's no point to do it. But I mean, Devon says never. It's a wrestling business. Never say never. You never know what can happen. But that's the only type of possible reunion I've ever heard, is that.
Yeah. I mean, even if it's at like one of the big autograph things that go on, like the big event in New York City, or like StarCast that that they do in where they have that in Chicago and I think LA, or like
Right.
one of the bigger Comic Cons or something, where like a promoter could grab you, get you all together and do that. I for one would love it, because I love professional wrestling history, and I think when the Dudleys and Spike Dudley got to WWE, when they made it there, I feel like a lot of the Dudley family history was lost because a lot of the focus had been put on them, which in retrospect for their careers is phenomenal because they went on and did huge things and accomplished so much in the wrestling industry. But you can't have them three without knowing the history because they were some of the last Dudleys to actually become part of the family.
Yeah, first off, the fact that nobody's ever done a reunion with us is unbelievable because most people who I end up meeting at these conventions
Hmm.
are just that. They go back and they get you know, um, a lot of ECW history. Like the ECW chairs from the pay-per-views, or I've had people, I don't even know how they got them, but the old ringside, the ring agents, ECW ring I've signed, all types of crazy stuff like that. And it's amazing. I'm sure a lot of people, or the WWE Encyclopedia I've signed, and I'm not even in there, but they asked me to sign it on Bubba and Devon's page because they want every family member. And a year ago, I did a convention in Rhode Island, and the guy that brought me in up there, he's actually trying to get a wrestling museum going, Dino, with the official wrestling museum. Him and his wife are amazing people, and they wanted to do something. And then a guy in Philly that does a podcast, he wanted to bring me, and we were trying to get me, Dances, and Sign Guy together for the convention last November that Rob Feinstein did at the arena. And I had just moved to Nashville, so I couldn't make it. And, it's beyond me why or how nobody has thought to put us all together for a convention. I mean, it'd be a huge thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, you can't have Bubba, Devon, and Spike without the rest of the family because the rest of the family was there first.
And don't get me wrong, too. I mean, let's, Bubba and Devon, and even Spike, they got that chance to go to that next level.
Yeah.
And I don't really know much about Spike because I left, and we can talk about that, why I left it, me being upset. But the three of them, they went on to Vince, and they were given an opportunity, and they took advantage of that opportunity, especially Bubba and Devon. Those guys came into the business really green. They were getting a small push in ECW, and I didn't think they were ready for what they were getting at that point. That was my personal opinion. But they proved me wrong and everybody else wrong because they took the ball and ran with it to go on to become not only Hall of Famers, but the best tag team in wrestling history. So, you know what I mean? Like, everything they got, they deserve the fame, the fortune. They more than deserve it because they busted their ass. And I am very proud of those two guys, even three. I'm even proud of what Spike did too. Like, they did good not only for themselves, they did great for the business, and they did great for the Dudley name for guys like me and Dances, and even Sign Guy, who was a big part of them even after towards the end of their ECW run. They did great for our name, to which our name is now truly part of wrestling history.
Yeah, and speaking of that, they took the Dudley name Bubba and Devon ended up in the WWE Hall of Fame. And one thing that they made sure that they noted, and they actually did it as a joke. I remember, they in their Hall of Fame speech they said, "Hey, Tommy Dreamer, we're the first originals we think in the WWE Hall of Fame, from ECW."
Right.
So the Dudley name is forever going to be a legacy because they're in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
And the way I look at that is it's not just Bubba and Devon. When you hear the Dudley name, I think of everybody else when I hear that. So it's really cool to see just how far the Dudley name has come, going from ECW to boom. Now you've got a couple of the Dudleys in the Hall of Fame, which is even though it was them being honored, to me, I felt the whole family was being honored in a way.
I totally agree. And nothing for nothing. If it wasn't for, and I'll be the first to admit this, if it wasn't for what Bubba and Devon did for their own careers and the Dudley name, nobody gave a shit about me. Seriously. And if it wasn't for those two, I mean, yes, I was part of, the ECW thing for a year to a year and a half, whatever it was. My name was on TV, my image was on TV, I was in magazines, books, all that stuff. But, I'm definitely one of the Dudleys that is forgotten more than remembered. But people know and remember me because of those guys. And then you have guys, too, like a Chris Jericho, who mentions me in his first book. And that's a dude who I got along with great. A lot of those guys. So a lot of those guys remember me if I do these conventions and Cactus Jack. When I see Mick, Chubby, all those people remember me. Even, God rest his soul, Eddie Guerrero, before Eddie died. I was at the first few Ring of Honor shows, and he was on them. And because at the time I was promoting shows and we were sharing the building, and I was at their first couple of shows. And he saw me and he's looking at me and he's pointing. He's like, I said, Chubby Dudley. He was like, oh my God, because at that time I cut my hair off. And he came over, gave me a big hug, and we talked for a while. And, Eddie was a beautiful soul, beautiful human being. So that time I had an ECW, I met a lot of people who, remember me, especially more when guys like an Eddie Gilbert or Eddie Guerrero, those guys remembered me because I didn't really do nothing in the ring. I was just part of the sideshow, but I was on good terms with everybody. So that means.
Speaking of, Extreme Championship Wrestling, you'd been there from the start when it was Eastern Championship Wrestling, even before that. What was the difference in the Eastern Championship locker room and the difference to the Extreme Championship locker room when you came back?
The Eastern Championship locker room was like 90%, Philly boys, which was okay. It's cool. There was all guys that I had gone through wrestling school with and was training with on a nightly basis, 3-4 nights a week. So we were all true brothers. And come back, 2 years later to Extreme Championship Wrestling, and you have a locker room that at that point only had a handful of Philly boys were still lingering around, or I should say still holding on. That was most of the New York guys. But sprinkled over top, so then you had 30, 40% New York guys, maybe 10% Philly guys, and the other 50% was true names of the business. Where in Eastern Championship Wrestling, you had that 10% was the name. You had a Snooker and Morocco, and that was it. The other 7, 8 opening matches were the local guys. What Paul did was he put the Philly, New York guys, or the more local guys, on that same level as these stars, these name guys, where your public enemies and are now on the same level. The Pitbulls are on the same level as the Steiner brothers, and stuff like that. Got put on an equal level, and by the way things took off with your characters, where you were ending up, it wasn't like, okay, here's a smorgasbord of local guys and they're local guys, and here's our main event. Hopefully people will pay to see the main event guy, and that's it.
Yeah. That's quite the difference between the locker rooms. And speaking of Extreme Championship Wrestling, you had said you left about a month after Spike Dudley debuted, and if you go and you look at cagematches.com and look at your wrestling match history, there wasn't a lot of matches as Chubby Dudley, whereas other Dudley members might have been getting more matches and this and that. So what ultimately caused you to leave Extreme Championship Wrestling?
What's that?
Okay.
When I was brought in, I was hoping for a chance to wrestle. What I was under the impression is I was going to get a shot to wrestle. And not even that I was looking for, a push or anything. I was just looking for the chance. And I was not given the chance. And, when Bubba came in, I'd be at ringside and I would see things in my head. And I'm like, at that point, I was doing indies for 2-3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, he's really green. Like, why are they giving him a shot and not even giving me a match? What's going on here? And then Devon came in and it was the same thing. Where they were going with it. I understood, the storyline they were doing, and I knew that there was the focus, and I was more acceptable to it, and I got it, and I was happy just to be there, and I was getting the weekly TV exposure and all that stuff, so I was happy as well. And when Spike came in, and it was boom, instantly in the ring, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, yeah, I just saw the writing on the wall that I was just not going to get a chance. And I just, I was going out there, every show, get my head bashed in with chairs, go through a table, do this. And I'm doing all this stuff. I'm getting concussion after concussion. I'm getting my nose busted. I'm doing what I got to do for this company. And I'm not complaining because I enjoyed it and I was very grateful for it. But again, I just wanted that shot, and I was never given that shot. And I saw once Spike came in and was given a shot, I was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm over this. I'm going to go do the indie circuit. And my phone instantly started ringing. People wanted to book me. So I was like, cool. So I started doing, work in the tri-state area as Chubby Dudley. And then I got a call. I was working, I was delivering pizzas. That was my day job at the time. I was delivering pizzas. And I got a call at the pizza shop from Taz. And he called up and he said, yo, we hear you're doing, you're working the indies and you're using our gimmick. That's our gimmick. You're not allowed to call yourself a Dudley and do the indies. That's our gimmick. And I was like, Taz, like, I just want a shot. I was trying to explain to him, like, my feelings, and just like I said to you. And he didn't want to hear it. He was just like, stop doing the gimmick, or I'm going to come to a show and I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to stretch you and I'm going to hurt you. So I'd advise you to stop doing our gimmick. And at that point, like, I just wanted a shot. And they never, they put me out there 1 or 2 opening matches because somebody didn't show or they needed like a filler, and they team me up with this person or that person. And then it would be like Sandman would come out with the cane and cane him. And Hack would say to me, he'd be like, Chubby, as soon as I hit that ring, I'm hitting you first. Get the fuck out of there. He's like, just fucking bail and go back to the dressing room. You shouldn't be out there. And that's what I would do.
Wow. And have you seen Taz since that whole thing?
Wow. No.
Wow.
I've not seen or talked to him since, and that was in 1996.
Wow. Like, not even anything on, like, social media interacting?
No.
Oh.
No.
Wow.
And I think it would, like, especially 24, 25 years later, it's fucking hysterical. It's funny. Like, and I get where Taz is coming from, and I get it. Like, I was promoting my own shows, my own company. I would have had somebody do the same thing.
Yeah.
So I get it. And I respected their wishes. And from that point, I stopped doing the Dudley gimmick, and I became the hot shot Bay Ragni. And so I get it. I think it's hysterical. I would love to talk to Taz today about it and, have a laugh about it. if he remembers, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that's crazy because I remember watching Extreme Championship Wrestling, and you never caught it at the same time. You either had to catch it Saturday or Sunday, but like if it was on at 6 a.m., the next week it was on at like 8 a.m. on like the Madison Square Garden network. That was the only way I could catch it. It was never on at the same time, and sometimes it was never on even the same syndicate channel. Like if I was watching it on the Madison Square Garden network,
Right.
Where I live was at the time channel 56. You would have to go through like TV Guide, which for us was channel 2, and have to watch. It was channel 54, 55, 56, and have to scroll through to find what day and time you would have to catch it, because it was never on. It was never on the same syndicate televised programming at the same time or anything. It was always different. There was times on Sundays I would catch it at 4 a.m. because that's when it would air. It just
in Philly, it was religiously on Sports Channel in Philly from day one up through probably 97. It was on like Tuesdays at either 5 or 6 p.m.
Yeah, here in New York, it was on all sorts of different hours and times, and it was mainly either Saturday or Sunday, pretty much until they got the television deal with CNN. Until they got that deal, you had to catch it at all sorts of different hours, and
Wow.
it was either Saturday or Sunday. But it was mostly the MSG network that you could catch it on. And I only think that was just because it was so close to New York that they were like, yeah, we'll put it on, you know. But it opened my eyes because at the time, all my friends are hyped up in WCW, WWF Monday Night Wars, and I'm sitting here going, guys, you need to watch ECW. They've got moves I've never seen before and wrestlers that are just absolutely crazy. And then you see them come in and work with WWF in '97, and then after that, you would Lawler was going to ECW and kind of trading back and forth, and they had all this stuff going on. It was really incredible to watch, and it really opened my eyes to that more extreme style of wrestling, and that's how I would have to catch it to watch it.
It was that whole time, like when they were building up for that first pay-per-view, and the interchanges between WWF and ECW, building up for that pay-per-view, and the stuff with Lawler, Commentator Arena, like I was still watching it and seeing all that stuff, and I was popping huge, and I was truly so happy for the locker room because even when I was there, Paul would do the locker room speeches, before each show, and especially before those arena shows. He would stand up on the steps and he'd be overlooking all of us boys and the girls, and he would give you such a rah-rah speech, and like he would get. I know me personally, and you can see from the product that was put on, it was truly, these guys were going out there. They were going out there. Yes, they're going out there for themselves. They're going out there to get their character and themselves over. They're going out there for the fans, but they were going out there for Paul and ECW as a whole too, because Paul was such a, like, he had us so riled up in our heads and so rah-rah. Like, he was truly an amazing, like, he should have been a sports coach, the way he talked. And he always mentioned that goal was he wanted pay-per-view. He wanted to get us on pay-per-view. And I think he also saw getting it on pay-per-view was going to be the savior of the company financially too.
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring his speeches up, because I want to say it was in Beyond the Mat, the documentary. I saw one of those speeches, and it's exactly how you talked. There's like a ramp, and he's up on top, and he's given this speech. And I, as a fan, I was hooked in. And then after, you heard all the boys hoot and holler and cheering, clapping. Paul knew how to get 100% out of anybody at all times.
Absolutely. He had everybody there. It was truly like a family. It truly was. There was a couple times there was riffs here and there. There was some almost fights. But for the most part, everybody there was truly a family. We had each other's backs, and we went out there, I feel like, as a whole for each show as a company, and we were putting on something as a whole family company together.
Yeah, and honestly, it showed, because you can tell who had chemistry with each other in companies and who didn't, working together wise, because at that point, like, if there wasn't chemistry, that's when I feel like you would see botches or mistakes made in the ring.
Right.
ECW, you really didn't see any of that, and I think it solely boiled down to ECW as a whole. Just like you said, it was like a family. Everybody had chemistry with each other, no matter who you got in the ring with.
Yeah.
And you almost don't see that anymore.
There's definitely a very big mutual respect between everybody in that locker room for sure.
Yeah. So you talk Taz kind of, after you leave ECW, Taz kind of says, "Hey, keep using the gimmick and you're going to find out what's going to happen to you," type deal. After the indies, you talked about, having your own company. How did that all come about? And, what was the name of the indie promotion you started? And the final part to the question is, what was the difference going from being a professional wrestler to now all of a sudden you're running a company, you're the booker, promoter, you're this, you're that, you're doing it all. What was that like? And was it almost overwhelming or too stressful for you at times? Or
So the company was called Liberty All-Star Wrestling, which the funny thing is, one of my original business partners, he restarted the promotion a few years ago. And I had gone back last year and I was doing commentary for them.
Mhm.
And again, I moved to Nashville, so I out of the picture. But he also, late last year, beginning of this year, he actually sold his piece of the company to a few people. And it's like nobody from the original ownership is running or owning this company now, which is kind of weird to me.
Yeah.
But we started it in '94, and that was the time, when Eddie was running Eastern Championship Wrestling, and we saw the writing on the wall. And I called a meeting with a lot of the Philly guys at my house, and we had probably 10 to 15 of the boys there. And I said, look, we're all being phased out. All the Philly guys are being let go, and all the Memphis boys, Eddie's bringing up his own crew of boys, which is what happens everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
None of us are happy with the product. We're not happy with the direction. Let's start our own thing. Let's go back to where Goodhart left off, and let's restart something and go in Joel's fashion. And everybody was all for it. But when it came time for anybody to want to be a partner or put money up, the only ones that stepped up was my friend who restarted it, Frank Cody. And he brought a friend there who wasn't even in the wrestling business, but he wanted to be in the business and wanted to be part of something.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, Larry Reed, who we ended up giving him as a manager gimmick, Lucky Larry. He was amazing in his character. So we started in our first show was in November of '94. And my main event on that first show was 2 weeks later to become Raven. He was fresh out of WCW. He was Johnny Polo at the time, or Scotty Flamingo. He was Scotty Flamingo.
Yeah, in WWF, he was Scotty Flamingo in '94. He was,
Yeah.
oddly enough, man, they paired him with an odd team because he was with the Quebecers, I believe.
Right.
Yeah. Totally strange.
So it was Scotty Flamingo against Tom Brandy, who just came out of WCW too, Johnny Gunn. So that was our main event, and we had a great opening show, and everybody loved it, and everybody was on board now, and they were like, "Oh shit, you guys pulled it off. This was a great show." So we started running, and even when I was in back in Extreme, I talked to Paul about it. I said, "Hey, I just want to let you know I do promote shows. I hope it doesn't interfere with anything." And he was totally cool. He's like, "No." He goes, "I know." He goes, "I've heard about your product. I heard what you do." He's like, "Keep doing it." He said, "And you're more than welcome to use any of the boys. If you want to book any of the boys, you're more than welcome." He's like, "Just be respectable to what they're doing here and carry it over to your thing." Cool. So after I left ECW, the thing I really realized too in ECW was where I got pushed aside. I didn't have to do a lot of the in-ring wrestling. I didn't miss it. I really didn't miss it. I kind of enjoyed just being able to be a character. But even more, I saw what Paul was doing. And going back to Joel Goodhart, I wanted to do what they were doing. I wanted to be a promoter. I wanted to be a booker. And I wanted to run stuff. And I wanted to run my own shows and run my angles. And I wanted to run TV. I wanted to do that. I was getting a bigger rush off of watching those guys create and do.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was doing it on my own shows, I was getting that same rush more than what I was getting in the ring. So around 98, I turned around and really started to take the promoting seriously and everything, and started booking on a regular basis. And at that point in time, like my goal in my head was I wanted to take what Paul was doing and I wanted to find 4 different buildings in 4 different areas of Philadelphia area, whether it was, Delaware, Jersey, Philly, or the Philly suburbs. I wanted to get 4 different buildings separate enough away and run each building once a month. So it took me some time to line up the buildings, but it took me a couple of years to line them up. But I finally, 2 to 3 years later, I got 4 buildings lined up. And that's what I started doing. So I started running these monthly shows at each building, and we were a good 20 miles or more away from each building. So I was doing that, and the way I would do it was I would, the big show I would do it down in South Philly, which was sharing with Ring of Honor. So that would be our main show. And then I go around to these suburb shows and carry those angles on each week and try to get people roped in from these little towns and bring them into Philly for the big shows, which was like supposed to be our TV, but we didn't have TV.
Mm-hmm.
Actually had radio. And instead of a TV champion, I had a radio champion. So
interesting. I've never heard of those.
Yeah, we had the top rope radio champion. I used to do a weekly radio show on a local AM station back then. So we were doing that, and it cost money. It cost a lot of freaking money.
Yeah.
And me and my wife at the time were basically footing the bill. Our partners would foot a little bit, but we were losing more money than we were making. I mean, before the opening bell even sounded, you're $1,500 to $2,000 in the hole between renting the building, paying for the ring, paying for a license and insurance, and all that stuff adds up. So you got to sell 150 to 200 tickets before you even open the doors.
Yeah.
And then you pay for your talent. And then you got to pay for your merchandise and stuff like that. You got to keep your merch filled. Because that was the stuff that was carrying us, was selling our videotapes and shirts and hats. Those were the things that was carrying us and making me be able to pay the boys at the end of the night. But then it just got to the point where we lost so much money. It was April 2002. The electric company was at my door shutting my electric off because I couldn't pay my electric because I was spending all the money on the wrestling shows. And at that point, we had lost between $20,000 to $25,000.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like at that point, it was just like, you know what? Like, sat there and I typed up a thing and I put it on the, sent it out to the wrestling sheets and sites, and announced Liberty All-Star Wrestling is no more. We are dead in the water. We're done. Thank you.
Oh, wow. That's a good chunk of change to lose, too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big stress right there. So when you left ECW, was there any animosity, and were you still allowed to use ECW talent on part of your shows after you had left?
I don't think there was any animosity.
Okay.
I didn't use the gimmick, and I stopped.
Yeah.
I did not use any of the talent until, you know what? I did. I had used Richards on some shows, Rocco Rock, but I can't remember if they were actually in ECW at that point or if they were out. But, yeah. So as far as I know, I've never even talked to Paul since those days. Or when I've talked to his Dreamer, and Dreamer's always, I've seen Dreamer at tons of conventions or other shows and concerts, and he's always treated me with open arms and been very nice to me and talked to me. And, as far as I know, there's no bad feelings there. If there is, I'm sure he would have said something, because Tommy's a pretty straight up dude. He's a good dude. So I'm sure he would have said something. He's always treated me with respect. So.
Yeah, he's one of the nicest guys in the world. And
yeah.
I interviewed him in Rome, New York, and it was kind of funny. He had, in the interview, he kind of joked, and he had pointed out, and he goes, "I'm only doing this interview because he's wearing a Dusty Rhodes shirt." So I laughed, and the funny thing about it was, I knew he loved Dusty, so I purposely wore the shirt, hoping that it would entice him to let me do the interview. And he was just like, So in the interview, he pointed that out, and I was just like, "Thank you. That's what I kind of wanted," you know. So it was
That's
pretty.
awesome.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and we've talked a lot about the Extreme Championship Wrestling aspect, and I believe New Jack was just coming in while you were still there. Um, did you watch his episode of Vice, Dark Side of the Ring?
Of course, I had to. Um, New Jack was there. I was there. I mean, he came in pretty early once we were there, and I was a fan of the Gangsters. I was a huge fan of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I had every episode of Smoky Mountain TV on video, and I even back in '94, I was very close friends with Buddy Landell, and Buddy was a huge push with Corny down there, and he was right before Buddy went to WWE. He did Cornette did this. It was the Super Bowl of wrestling in Knoxville, Tennessee, and the main event was Buddy Landell against Shawn Michaels. So I drove down to Knoxville to go support Buddy and see that show. It was an amazing show, and so I knew of the Gangsters and what they were about, and when they came in, I was like, this is going to be good. This is going to be really freaking good. And I was always cool with New Jack, and he even, like, I did about 5-6 years ago, I did a little Liberty All-Star Wrestling reunion at a local Hooters. I did it 2 days. I did one in the Hooters in Philly and one in my house in the suburbs. And one of the days, actually, New Jack showed up. So I was shocked. Yeah, he came and hung out and drinking some beers. New Jack was always like cool with me, and I think part of the reason was funny New Jack story. So we used to, after the shows, we would stay at the Travel Lodge in Philly, across from the Oregon Diner, and New Jack was in a room with a girl, and there was this one of the marks there. This guy was real goofy. I remember he used to call himself the Sandman. He was like this goofy mark, and of all rooms to bust into, he busted in New Jack's room. Yeah, and New Jack's in there with a girl, and I was in another room partying with some people, and we hear all this commotion, and we hear New Jack screaming, and we hear like banging and boom. We go out in the hallway, and I see this guy running for his life. And I'm with Mustafa and I think Bill Alfonso and a couple other guys. And now, if you've ever been in the Travel Lodge is a circle, okay? Mm-hmm. New Jack's telling us, this motherfucker comes in my room, he busted in my fucking room. Who does he fucking think he is? I'm in there with my girl. And here he comes, running back. And he runs back into us, runs back into New Jack. So New Jack pops him, drops this fucking guy. This guy's like, fucking gets up, runs for his life, and starts running. Again, the Travel Lodge is a circle. He runs in the fucking circle and comes and runs right back into New Jack again. New Jack drops him again. The dude like fucking gets up. He's all scattered, and we were right by the stairway, and it runs down the fucking stairs. So New Jack is, I'm gonna kill this motherfucker. So now New Jack's chasing him, and we're chasing New Jack to go fucking save this guy.
Yeah,
save New Jack from going to jail. So we we get down in the lobby, and we like basically like tackle New Jack, and we're holding New Jack back from this fucking guy. This guy just runs for his life. So I think from that point on, like New Jack had a little respect for me because I was there to have his back. Yeah, but a lot of the stuff in the documentary, like about his personal life with his family and all, I had no idea of that stuff. Yeah, but I mean, Jack is Jack. You know, he isn't. You know, he admits everything he's done, and you know he's done what he's done, and some of it is crazy shit. Some of it has helped his career. Some of it has hurt his career. But you know, at the end of the day, he's happy with what he's done, and you got to respect him for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of different forms of professional wrestling nowadays, and he was in a I want to say the early stages of the, CCW type style, that really hardcore
Yeah.
style. I mean, and that's what he did, and he worked it, and he did great at it. And um, whether you like the guy, don't like the guy, uh, for his form of professional wrestling, you have to respect him for it. He helped bring it up when it was, if this is the bottom, it started here with him, and all of a sudden it just kept going up and up and up, and and then all of a sudden there's these big Japanese war matches, and with the C4 barbed wire match and all this other stuff. And I always loved when he would just, when his music hit, you were going to see some wild shit happen.
I was just going to say, that's the thing too with New Jack. New Jack delivered every time he went out there, and he took it to another level. But on top of that, the New Jack, if you want to say character, or I mean it's him, but he had that it factor in the ring. He had that star quality. He made you fucking pop as a fan. You watch the stuff he did, you fucking pop. You respect what he was doing in the ring as a wrestler. He had that it. He without a doubt, he had that star quality.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you this: do you have the WWE Network?
I used to. I don't have it anymore.
All right, and this is in no way me plugging the network. So when you used to have the network, did you ever watch any of the old ECW episodes? What were your thoughts on when you would watch it on the network and then hear the music be different because WWE wouldn't pay for the rights? Because me, for example, when I knew Rob Van Dam was coming out, you heard Pantera Walk, and you went nuts. When you heard New Jack's music, you went nuts. I mean, just about when you heard anybody's theme, because you knew what it was. The Dudley Boys, like with Spike Dudley, Highway to Hell. All this, mainstream music. But then you watch it on the network and you don't hear it, and you're kind of like, why are the fans popping the way they are? Their music made a huge emphasis on the pop for the wrestler itself, because you recognize the wrestler with the music and vice versa. So what's your thoughts on when you watched the network and you heard this generic beat for a certain wrestler and you're like, what?
It's so bad. It really is. It loses so much. And that music was so important to every character. Honestly, I don't think if they used the generic music in ECW at the time, I don't think it would have got over, because that music was so vitally important to every character's ring entrance and run-in. Let's face it, nobody was playing music when people were doing run-ins until Paul.
Yeah.
So when you heard that music, it added to the pop. You know what I mean? Like, so the fact that they don't use it on WWE TV, it loses. Like, I can't watch it. I cannot watch it, because it made me so sad to see, because it loses the whole appeal.
Yeah, no, it really does. And there's other, they even did it with some of the themes in WCW. Like if you watch Chris Jericho or if you watch DDP come out, you're like, that's not their music. You're like, what?
That's crazy.
Yeah, and it does take away from it. You're 100% right, because I was always curious how Paul Lee, did he have the music? Did he, was he copywriting, or was he paying the royalties for the bands? Did the bands know that their music was being used for this stuff? Because he also came out with CDs later on, and some of it he actually had other bands. There was other bands that did covers of it. So do you know about any of that? Did Paulie have any sort of, or did the bands know themselves that you knew of, or anything like that?
The funny thing is, like, I mean, now I don't know for sure. Like, I think Paulie just kind of said, "Fuck it, get it." I really do. That's what I felt. As things went on, I'm sure the bands were getting word about it, and it turns out a lot of because with my podcast, one of my podcasts I do a lot of music interviews and rock and metal band interviews. A lot of these guys are wrestling fans, and sometimes they'll end up like, "Dude, I Googled you. I know who the fuck you are." So they talk about this stuff. So I would think they most definitely probably knew. I mean, a band like ACDC with the Dudleys using Highway to Hell, like probably maybe not them, but somebody in the know had to know. But then, further down the line, when Paul started doing that, like putting out CDs and stuff like that, at that point, Paul probably was paying some type of royalty or something, I would think.
All right. You speak that, you have, you said a couple of times that you have like your own podcast, and now I'm hearing multiple. How many podcast shows do you have? What are the names? I mean, any social media out there for them or for yourself where fans can find you?
Yeah, so I've been doing a show called Totally German Radio for almost 8 years now. Yeah, and it was, we used to do it live every Thursday night. It was me and my co-host Nick Wilkinson, and it was basically a 3-hour live show. It was kind of like I used to call it like the low budget Howard Stern show, but we would do 2 to 3 celebrity interviews a week, and we would mix in, talk about our real lives. So we did that up until last summer, and then once I moved here, I took a break for a while, and I just restarted almost 2 months ago now. And but we're not live anymore. We're doing everything pre-taped. So I do Totally German Radio, which is just celebrity interviews now. I do a strictly hard rock metal interview show called the Rock and Ragni Show. My co-host Nick and I, because we like to talk about stuff in our own personal lives and stuff that's going on, and we actually became better friends from our conversations and learned so much about each other. So he goes by Sick Nick. So we call that the Bay Sick Show. So we have the Basic Show. And I started a thing down here in Nashville called the Nashville Restaurant Review, where I talk to restaurants, and I'm going to eventually be talking to people and foodies of Nashville, and what's their favorite spots to eat and stuff like that. So I'm doing 4 shows.
Wow, that's incredible. And you've got me hooked on music, celebrities, and food. I like all 3, and I'm sure Nashville has some pretty good barbecue. So if I ever come down, where could you recommend me to go to?
That's a good question, because I only ate at one barbecue place and had a sample of another place. The first place I tried was Martin's Barbecue, which is probably the most popular place here. They have a bunch of locations, and I wasn't overly impressed. And I apologize to Martin's, but I'm just telling the truth. And then the other place is Peg Leg Porker, and I had their brisket. Their brisket was amazing.
Ooh, I love me a good slow cooked brisket. Ooh.
Yeah. So
that's incredible.
Just to get reopened to start getting back out there.
Yeah, for real. And of course, I said that's incredible, Justin. That was a plug for you, buddy. Where can fans find you personally, like on social media? Like, are you on Twitter, Facebook?
On Twitter, yeah. I mean, you can just look me up on Twitter, on Facebook, Bay Ragni. I have a Chubby Dudley page on Facebook, on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Just look up Totally Driven Entertainment or Totally Driven Radio. Yeah, like me, love me, follow me, subscribe to our channels. I'm on. You can hear me on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, all them podcast spots on there. YouTube, my YouTube channel, subscribe.
Oh, wow. All right. Fans, Bay Ragni is all over the place on social media. Find him, like him, subscribe. Bay, I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you, Lee.
An honor. I have learned a lot. I would love to have you back on the show if we could make it happen. Fans, remember, spoiler free is the way to be. We're out.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching that video. If you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the like button and make sure you hit subscribe so you can get all our content here at Perched on the Top Rope. And fans, remember, spoiler free's the way to be. I'm out.
you.